Welcome to the Renatus InvestEdge, everybody. I am not Jay Stark, as it just was up on that screen. I am Matt Snyder, but I wanted to start this call off in Jay's absence with helping you understand that this call, or broadcast maybe, is about bringing you the best of information that is current and relevant right now. It's not from books 15 years ago. It's from practitioner instructors that are doing it right now. So without further ado, I'd like to bring out my dad, our founder and our CEO, the man that I have known from birth. And not only is he my father, but he's a mentor of mine. Dad, why don't you take the call away?
Man, thanks, man. I appreciate it. This is so cool. Listen, Renatus is one of those businesses where it's not where, where we just tolerate nepotism. No, we endorse it and we promote it because we've got such amazing talent within our families, and that goes for myself and for Jay and others here. So I love being able to build a business with my son, and hope that each and every one of you have that opportunity to do that in your own households, because it's pretty rewarding. Anyway. Thank you, son.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity, because we've got another great InvestEdge for you today. So we're going to get right into it. Now, listen, I've got to introduce our featured, interview speaker, trainer, for the next hour, because this is a person who's been involved with the Renatus community for many years. As a matter of fact, I've got to watch him kind of grow up into the business. I've watched his kids come into the world and see his family expand. I've been able to see his servant leadership ability inside of our community continue to grow and blossom and bless the lives of others. It's been an absolute joy. So now to be able to invite him out here as one of our students who is actually doing deals and making things happen, utilizing the Renatus education, that's just, that kind of warms my heart, because that's the reward that I'm always looking for. So you're going to love this, man. His name's Dave Clark, and Dave is an absolute rock star. He's such a fun guy inside of our community, and every time he does a deal, man, we want to ring the bell, check the box, and celebrate the win. So, Dave, come on out here. I want to introduce you to everyone that is tuned in to Renatus InvestEdge.
Hey, Bob. Hey, Matt. Can you guys hear me?
Hey, Dave. Yeah, we can hear you.
We can see you, too.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to talk about short-term rentals today, and you were just mentioning being a family business. This can absolutely be a family business too, which we've definitely implemented over the years. So we're going to dive right in. Let me go to my PowerPoint. We'll see. Whoops, sorry, I got to share my screen first, so you guys won't be able to see what I'm doing.
That's right, and we want to see what you're doing.
Okay. So we'll just quickly start this up. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover today. Obviously, when it comes to short-term rentals, we want to talk about building your ideal avatar, and then the difference between owning a short-term rental versus leasing, getting your first unit, building your team, some things not to do that I've definitely experienced, some automation, and some managing tips that are going to help you in your business. Okay, can you guys see me now?
Yep, we certainly can. You've been able to successfully go back and forth. Nicely done.
Yes. Then that's goal number one done.
You love it when a
we can just end the call right there.
Yeah.
How to share your screen online. So as we dive into it, really when I first started out in short-term rentals, when I watched the class and learned that I didn't even have to own a property, man, that was a huge game changer for me. But the number one thing that I've seen since other people have come in and asked, hey, how did you do it? And obviously being in Utah, we're in the DIY state where everyone thinks, man, I can just YouTube it. I can do it from my basement and I'm going to rock and roll. They miss the number one step, which is creating that avatar of who you even want to work with. So imagine this. Imagine you were to go out and open up a restaurant right now. You spend all the money to get the lease. You get everything ready to go. You unlock the doors. Well, do you even know what you're going to be selling? Do you know what your menu items are? Are you going to be a fine dining restaurant? Are you going to be a Mexican restaurant? Are you going to just be the truck stop on the side of the road? Because if you haven't figured that out, you're wasting your time and you're wasting your money when it comes to running a business. The same goes for short-term rentals. You have to really dial in who you even want to work with and cater to. which I've got a slide for that, but I'm just going to keep talking here. We'll get to the avatar in a minute. But that's the number one thing that people miss is, where do I even want to do a short-term rental? Because people come up to me all the time saying, Dave, how do I get started? Where should I start? I live in Denver, Colorado, for example. Well, I'm like, why don't you start in Denver, Colorado? But they're like, yeah, but what about the destination areas? And I'm like, who cares about the destination areas? Learn how to make money in your local market first. And then all you have to do is rinse and repeat wherever you want in the world. So that's the first step that so many people miss when they're jumping into doing short-term rentals. And when you really look at it,
I'm glad you hit on that too, Dave, because it's not just applicable for short-term rentals, but it's also applicable for, everywhere. And I always tell folks, man, just draw a big circle about 30 miles around your house, and that's where you start. So I'm glad you hit on that.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't matter if it's real estate or any other type of business. You have to figure out who you even want to work with, because there are some people that you just don't want to work with at all. And when it comes to short-term rentals, the other thing that you really have to do, really get good at, is once you figure out who you want to work with, then this is at least what I did for me. I live near Salt Lake City, Utah. So I literally just pulled up a map on Google of Salt Lake City, Utah, and I zoomed out to about a 30,000 foot overview where I could just kind of get a feel of what the city looked like. And I thought about that ideal person that I would want to work with, and I thought about, where in Salt Lake would that person even want to go to? Are they going to be going up to the University of Utah? I don't know why anyone would do that, but I guess there are some people that would do it. Are they going to be coming in here for cancer treatments? Are they just going to be coming in for the slopes, for skiing? Are they coming in for Sundance? And then as I narrowed down those questions, I went even further, where I started thinking about, okay, now if this person's coming to Utah, are they going to drive here? Are they going to fly here? If they're flying here, where are they sitting on the airplane? What airline are they flying on? When they get to Salt Lake, are they getting a Turo to drive to my place? Are they getting a Uber? Are they renting their own vehicle? If so, what vehicle are they renting? Is it just a compact car or electric car, or is it a nice luxury vehicle? So the better you can dial in those questions ahead of time, once you get that figured out, then you're going to automatically know, okay, this is where I need to go start looking to do a short-term rental.
Excellent.
So that first step is absolutely key.
Well, and yeah, and I think that that is key. Could you expand on that a little bit? Why is it that you want to figure out who you want to do business with? Because I know how it is with long-term, buy and holds. I want to buy, a nice little house in a nice little neighborhood that's going to attract a nice little family, because I've found that the property has a personality that attracts, my ideal client. Same thing that you're experiencing in short term?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you got a CEO of a Fortune 500 company coming in and they're staying in your rental and there's food stains on the counter, the dishes look dirty, it looks more like a Walmart establishment where people are walking around in their pajamas, you're probably going to turn that client off. And especially in the DIY state, if you try and cater to everyone, you're going to cater to absolutely no one. So you have to dial in that very first. And then you'll solve a lot of your other questions right off the top of your head.
Solid advice,
all right,
buddy.
So let's go back here to my PowerPoint again. All right. So this is kind of the person that I thought in my mind. You can see Salt Lake City in the background, but this is the type of person, the age, what they're coming for work, that I narrowed down in my brain when they were coming to Salt Lake, why they would want to stay in my property. And then once you've defined your avatar, you want to set up your listing to cater to that person's needs. Like I said, if they're coming in more for a luxury stay, you want to give them that nice experience when they're there. Maybe put some money into a nice espresso machine, have a little bit fancier linens, nicer bed, than someone that's just coming here with kids and toddlers and they're going to trash the place anyway. Completely different market that you're going to go after with those two scenarios. And then once you've narrowed that down, sorry if I keep switching back and forth too much. I'm trying to show you my face as I'm talking here, but I'm going to jump back to this. Now I want to talk about the difference between leasing a property versus owning a property and why that is such a big thing. Oh, and you know what? I just realized I put my slide in here wrong. So don't worry about that one. We'll come back to that one. Just realize, guys, that you don't have to be smart to make money. You don't even know how to work a PowerPoint. Okay, so let's look at this example when it comes to owning versus leasing. Let's say we go out and we pick up a nice 3-bed, 2-bath house. Anywhere in the country, our average housing price is going to be $500,000. Let's say that's a 2,000 square foot house. So if we're buying this with traditional financing as a vacation rental, they're going to want at least 20% down. So that's going to be $100,000 down that we have to put into it. And then what I learned is right off the bat when you're starting out, it's going to be on average about $25 a square foot just to get everything furnished the way you want it to be to get your first booking. So if we're at a 2,000 square foot house, our setup cost on this property is going to be $50,000. So our total investment that we've invested without making any money yet is $150,000. Okay. Now let's assume that we could go out and cash flow $1,000 a month on this house. How many of you would love to start making an extra $1,000 a month coming in without you doing a whole lot of work? We all would, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if we look at our rate of return on owning this property, we're going to be at an 8% rate of return. Sweet, I did that right. My slide worked. But I consider this going... Sorry, what'd you say?
I said clean living pays off, Dave.
It certainly does. But here's the thing. If we are owning properties, let's say our goal is to bring in an extra $10,000 a month. If we're needing $5,000 a month, we'd have to go get 5 more of these properties. So this one investment costs us $150,000. So we'd have to multiply that by 5 just to hit the cash flow that we want to get. Now let's look at an example if we start leasing with all other things being the same. See, here's really the cool thing where the wheels started turning in my mind, because I realized if I just lease this property, I can knock off that $100,000 down payment right off the bat, which can save me a ton of money if that's coming out of my own pocket. Now we'll still have the same money in setup costs. So we're still at $50,000 there. And sorry, I totally messed that up. That should say total investment $50,000, not $150, because we just saved ourselves $100,000. So that's great. Woohoo. And then let's assume that everything's the exact same. We're cash flowing on this property $1,000 a month. Well, if we divide that up, we just shot our ROI up to 24% ROI. So imagine, guys, if you were getting an extra 24% ROI. Imagine that it's going back into your savings account or back into your retirement account, tax-free or tax-deferred. How soon would things start changing for you? And that's when I looked at this and said, man, like when I first heard about short-term rentals, I was like, is this legal? Like, do people actually get away with just leasing a property and you can still make money off of it? But here's the cool news. It absolutely works. And those numbers are cool. So imagine that $50,000, that's your own money. That's still giving you a 24% rate of return, which, I mean, when I started at my job, I think if I'm lucky, I'm getting 6% rate of return when the economy's going good. Back like 10 years ago, it was negative 2%. So if I could always get a 20+% rate of return, I'd be ecstatic. But when I started looking at this and I thought, man, what if I don't even have to use my own money? What if I could go raise some money so I don't have anything coming out of my pocket? Now how many deals could I do? Because now I no longer have to qualify traditional financing. All I have to go out and search for is properties that will lend me and allow me to do short-term rentals. So that's when the wheels really started shifting, and that's when things started taking off for us. And that was back in September 2019 when we got our very first unit. And which leads into the next slide, which I'll just segue into it instead of bringing that up again. So now we want to look, we already know that this works. We already know there's money to be made. Now we want to look at where can I do it? So let's say that we've already checked the box. We know who that avatar person is that we want to dial in. Now the fun begins. We got to go find a property. And for me, it took a while. I think it took me about 90 days really until I found my first property, because I still worked full time. I was calling people on my lunch breaks. I was setting appointments with property managers. And then on the weekends, I was going and walking properties in that geographical area that I circled in Salt Lake City. And it took about 10 apartment complexes that I walked through. Some didn't, once I walked them, as you do this, you'll realize that after you walk the property, you're like, okay, this isn't what I thought it was. This floor plan doesn't meet my requirements, or maybe the manager was not fun to talk to. So you'll see a lot that don't work. And here's where things started shifting for me. Why the education that Renatus has is so valuable. Because I have people that come up and they're like, well, I could do this. I could just go and get a property at an apartment complex like you have. But they miss the most important question, which is how to have the conversation with the property managers or with the landlords that are responsible for the lease. Because if you don't know how to talk to them, there's no way they're going to give you a lease. Because imagine this. Imagine you're a property manager. I walk into your office one day. I kick back and say, you know what? I want to put an Airbnb in your apartment complex. What's that manager automatically thinking in the back of their head?
Yeah, no
They're
way.
thinking about all those, they're thinking about all those horror stories, right?
Yep.
Like, man, I just saw so-and-so, like this happened a couple summers ago here in Utah. Someone was staying at a place and actually burned, they just started a forest fire staying in someone's place. So they're thinking about all these what-if scenarios going through their mind, like, man, police sirens, emergency vehicles. They're like, heck no, you're not staying here. Go somewhere else. Yep. So you have to know how to have that conversation. See, when I walk into a property manager's office, what was so vital that I learned in the education was how to have that conversation, which questions to ask that would get them to tell me yes. Because what they don't realize until you have the conversation with them is you will be their new best tenant and they will not want you to leave.
Right.
Because imagine a typical renter. How well do they treat their property? I mean, if you're like me, I had 5 kids in a 3-bedroom apartment. That thing, when we moved out, like, it definitely needed some paint and some new carpet. Yeah. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
That's probably a good assumption. Yeah.
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 Yeah. If they don't burn it down, that's a success, right? Like that's about how it goes.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, because Matt can speak to that. I mean, all of his kids are young right now, so he's kind of in the meat grinder years. You know, he hasn't gotten to that point where, I mean, they'll feed themselves, change themselves, clothe themselves, you know, bathe themselves. But your day's coming. Your day's coming. It's going to be awesome.
Like, where'd your diaper go, and why do you have a lighter?
Oh my goodness, I know it's a lot of fun, that's for sure. We got out of diapers and now we're back in diapers. So
yeah, that happens. That happens too.
Yeah, but it's all fun. You start making more money, and all of a sudden, 9 months later, you get another surprise. So.
That's right. Right. Yep.
I find it coincides with the money. Weirdly enough, those big paydays. You know, you can go back and 9 months later, you got a kid, and it's the weirdest thing. It's something in the stars.
That is interesting. It is interesting. Well, you know what? They say that money can't buy you love, but I guess it can put you in a much better bargaining position. Okay, let's not get too far off topic here.
Look at what I'm doing. Right. See, I'm derailing, and we don't have Jay here to keep us on track. So, sorry,
we're the kings of left turns.
That's okay, because you got to have a little fun. Otherwise, you're taking life way too seriously. So let me go back to, whoops, did I share my screen again? Sorry, guys. Let me share this. Go back to my slide. For those of you that want to take snapshots on your phone. Okay, so when we're getting into our first unit, here's what's awesome. When I went back and talked to those different apartment complexes, I applied at, I think it was 4 of them initially. 3 of them told me no. And then the one that told me yes wasn't even the last one I talked to. They were actually one of the first ones that I talked to. But the issue was when I originally went and talked to them, what I understood is they had a $200 non-refundable deposit and a $200 non-refundable application fee. And I was just starting out, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm even going to qualify for this. So $400 at the time, that was a lot of money to me. So we parted ways, and I went and applied a few other places. Obviously, that cost me about the same amount of money. Then I went back to her, talked to her again, and she's like, oh, no, you misunderstood. It's only $200 non-refundable. The others you get back if you don't get qualified. And I was like, okay, that's not too bad. So we built that relationship, we signed the lease, and then we were rocking and rolling. Now that was back in September, and whoops, sorry, I forgot to share my screen again. I'm still getting used to this.
You're good.
This is fun though.
You're doing a really good job.
Oh, thank you. I can multitask. My wife would disagree, but I'm doing okay right now. So once we find the property we want, we have to sign that lease, okay? Don't bother wasting your time if you're not going to get that lease signed. Once they say yes, fill out the application. I would even stay in their office. Now most of it's online, so you can just fill out the application online. But I would sit in their office, fill it out online, and send it back to them. And then I would always ask them, when should I expect to hear back from you? Usually it's within 1 or 2 days at max. I've had people that have been waiting a couple weeks and call me and they're like, man, I haven't heard anything. I'm like, well, what do you think the answer is? Probably no. Well, I'm like, then stop wasting your time and go find another property. And then after you get the lease signed, then the fun begins. Then you got to go furnish the unit. And again, you want to cater it to that person that you've got in mind. This is actually our very first unit that we set up 5.5 years ago. And here's some pictures of how that process went. What's really cool is, like I said, we were living in an apartment at the time, and now we're renting an apartment for people to pay us, which was awesome. But I did not have a garage to store all of the Amazon boxes that kept coming, so we sent those all to my in-laws' garage, and they stored them for us. So you know how most businesses like Apple and what are those other businesses? Amazon gets started out of their garage. Well, this one got started out of my in-laws' garage. So just as good, I guess.
Even better, because it's not your garage that you got to clutter up. It's your in-laws.
Yeah, no kidding.
That was exactly right. And middle picture, I will warn you that most Amazon boxes have styrofoam. And if the kids are left unattended even for a minute, it looks like Christmas morning in there. So fair warning, I will warn you, that stuff gets everywhere. Do not let your kids or dogs or anyone touch that styrofoam. Get that thing out of there as soon as you can.
Oh boy, yeah. Yeah, that makes a mess.
It definitely makes a mess. And there's my wife in the upper right-hand corner. She was pregnant at the time. I don't think she appreciated us. This one took us a month to get set up. Half the time is we didn't know what the heck we were doing when we first started out. And I had my kids getting styrofoam all over the place. So it took a while to get it looking nice. And then we got time for a side tangent. So I would recommend doing things once you get the lease, then you furnish the property. Then when it's furnished, then you list your property. I got a little too antsy on my first one. So we had furnished it. We stayed there to make sure stuff was working. We got the pictures done, and then we were waiting on pictures to come back. So we brought all the linens home with us. And then it was a Friday. I got my pictures. I got everything listed, and life was good. We were rocking and rolling. And so I listed my property, but we didn't have any beds made. And I'm like, well, that's okay. We'll make them once we get a booking. And then never tell yourself or your spouse that you have nothing to do on a Friday night, because that's when stuff always happens. We listed it that morning, and later that night, I get a notification on my phone from Airbnb saying, congratulations, you have an instant booking. And I checked the date, and it was a check-in for that night. And they didn't have any beds to sleep on. And it gets even better. In the message, they said they were coming for their anniversary weekend.
Oh, no.
To our apartment.
Oh, no. And you don't have a bed?
Ready for bed. No beds. They had beds, just no linens. So I told my wife, I'm like, grab the kids, throw your shoes on, let's get downtown. So we got there in 20 minutes. I stayed outside with my kids. She ran upstairs, made the bed, and literally as she's coming down to go out, they're walking in to go check into their place. So if you guys like those kinds of adrenaline rushes, then you can do it in that order. But if not, just take the time to do it in the right order. List it, make sure you have a bed, and then list it. So otherwise, yeah, you can have some fun stories to tell later. And hopefully the guests will never know what happens, like what happened in that situation.
Well, I'm just kind of curious,
So-
Dave. I mean, did you repeat that on the next deal and then the next deal and then the next deal?
Oh, no, we got smarter. We've had some other fun things happen along the way, but it was never with the first listing.
Right.
We did it right after that, going forward. Yeah, but then it was fun. Then we just started rinsing and repeating. Oh, and I didn't mention the way that we funded this one is we had a little bit of cash saved up, so we spent $3,000. That paid for the application, first month's rent, and our background check, which was about $3,000. Then all that furniture that was sitting in my in-laws' garage, they were really nice to me. They gave me a $11,000 loan at 5% interest over 5 years, which I thought was pretty good at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And what was even better is, do you guys remember 2020 at all, or it was just me? Because 2020 was a little crazy.
Yeah, I have a
So
vague
like, hey-
recollection of that period of time.
Yeah, it's burned into my brain.
5 years ago this month, the whole world changed.
Yeah,
No,
that's
6
right.
years ago. 6
No,
years ago. We're
Oh, it was 5.
Year 6.
Well, so
Fine.
20. It
Oh,
was
you're
March
right.
of 2020, right? So yeah,
You're right.
5
Yeah,
years
March
ago.
2020.
Crazy.
It
remember it
is
well.
crazy. Yeah. So anyway, they're like, hey, you know what? The world's crazy right now. Don't even bother making a payment for the first year. So I had pretty much free money for that first year, and we ended up getting that loan paid back to them in just a couple years.
Wow.
But what was nice is, since we were now running a business, we had a lot more tax write-offs. So in that February of 2020, we got a big tax refund. We got $11,000 back on our taxes. And so I called that property manager I started making that relationship with, and I said, hey, you know what? I'm ready for another one. So we got another one set up, although this one was a funny story. So we get that one set up, pictures taken, and then I listed it. We were booked solid all of March. And then halfway through March, every single person canceled. And we had one poor lady staying there from Montreal, Canada. And she was literally watching the news, and she messaged me, and she's like, if I don't leave today, I may not get back home to my country. And so she had already stayed for about a week. She left, and Airbnb gave her all of her money back.
Oof.
Gave her 100% refund and took all that money away from me. That was hard.
Oh, no.
And that's when I thought, man, am I sure I want to do this again? But the great part about that is it just allowed us to pivot and say, okay, if we're in a market like this, if COVID were to happen again, how could we move forward? And so we ended up just working with local businesses. And in fact, we worked with the Ronald McDonald House and found a family that needed housing because everything was booked. So they ended up staying in our property for about 2 months. Now, we didn't make money on that, but we were at least not as negative. I think we were negative a couple hundred instead of a couple thousand a month. So you definitely have to learn how to pivot, because that first year that I was doing it, we had COVID, and I thought I knew what I was doing, and then everything that I thought I knew what I was doing ended up changing.
That's where education is valuable, because you don't know what you don't know. And somebody who is uneducated and inexperienced would have just lost a couple $1,000s a month for how long, right? But man, I mean, that's entrepreneurship right there. You pivoted and you were able to take your loss down to 10% of what it was going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, we were negative about 90 days, but over the next 12 months after that, that one unit cash flowed us over 1,100 a month.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right on. Nice recovery.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, if you could go back and tell your past investor self just starting out, you know, one word of advice, what would it be?
Man, it would be start local and take the time to reinvest in the business. Save for those slow months right off the bat. Because we know, especially here in Utah, we're a cyclical market. We have good winter months, we have good summer months, and then the spring and the fall kind of slow down a bit. Mm-hmm. And so your income goes like this if you're doing short-term rentals. So you have to plan for that ahead of time. And that would have saved me through COVID if I had just taken that money that I made those first 6 months and just put them back into the business.
Right on. Right on. Well, you know what? Those are the lessons learned. That's the reason why we do this InvestEdge, is to help other individuals understand how to cut the learning curve and avoid some of the mistakes that have been made. So, you know, I'm loving what you're putting down here.
Oh, thank you. All right, now we'll jump back to this here, and I'll go back to my previous slide that I had, which was this one. So really, if you're just looking to do this out of your basement, this training's probably not for you. But if you really want to, can you my screen?
Oh, I can see it.
Yeah, nope, no, we can see it.
Okay, I thought I heard something. Yeah, but if you really want to scale this and make it a business that can pay you really well, then you have to start looking at building your team. Because right off the bat, you will probably wear all of these hats. And these are just a few of them. You're going to need more than these. These are just some of the ones that I thought of right off the bat as I was starting out. So the project manager, that's going to be the person that's responsible for going out and finding those new leases, those new deals, whether that's buy and hold or leasing the property. And then you're going to have to either pay for a designer or learn how to design it yourself, which was another valuable part of the education, because I really just copied and repeated what people were already doing inside of Renatus, and it ended up working out really well. In fact, the first person that helped me with my first unit, they paid a designer over $40,000 to set up a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. And our first one, total, we were into it $14,000. So you can definitely save money if you understand the market and understand what you're doing. And then you're going to need a cleaner. Now that can either be you or that can be somebody that you hire to clean your property. It's kind of a funny thing, but when you have a short-term rental, if somebody leaves the place before somebody else comes to your place, that needs to be cleaned in between. Otherwise, you're going to have a fun phone call. I had a good friend of mine that got a unit, and she got it set up, got somebody in there, and then they checked out earlier that day, which I knew. And then I saw her that night in an event, and I asked her, I was like, so how are things going? And she's like, oh, good. I'm heading over after this event to go clean the property. And I'm like, well, why don't you have a cleaner cleaning it? And she's like, oh, well, I just wanted to do it myself. But she didn't realize that somebody could instantly book her property and check in, and the place wouldn't be a complete mess. So take the time to either start building your team or realize that that person might be you, and you need to get it done before that next person gets in. And then you're going to need a handyman for when things break, because you want that property to look brand new, just like your listing photos, each and every time someone gets there. So if something breaks, you want to make sure it gets fixed as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Well, and Dave, don't you find too, I mean, everything we teach is all about leverage, right? I mean, you're going to use other people's efforts, other people's credit, other people's money, other people's, knowledge and so forth. So all of all of the OPs play a very big role in what we do here. And if you're the one that's playing cleaner and you're the one that's playing handyman, unfortunately, you're limiting the amount of time that you have to work on other deals. Has that been your experience?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because on average it takes, well, it depends on who's cleaning. If it's me cleaning, it's like 3 hours. If it's my wife, she can clean it in under an hour. She's very fast. But yeah, if I'm spending 3 hours to clean one property, that limits the amount of time that I can be looking for new deals. And not only that, that's just cleaning. That's not to mention the washing and the drying and the folding of all the linens. And then you got to take them back to the property. So that does take a lot of time. But right off the bat, we looked at that as kind of another side stream of income where my wife could do it as we were first starting out, because we didn't want to pay for her to do it.
Yeah.
And then after we got more units going and she had another baby, she couldn't do them herself. So we started hiring that out. But that can work if you have a tandem or a good duo. If it's just you doing everything, you're going to greatly minimize the amount of deals that you can go out and do.
Oh yeah.
Right on. Well, along this lines, I mean, now that you're, kind of a few years down the road, I mean, you've got some wit and wisdom that I know will certainly be of assistance. What else you got on those PowerPoint slides?
All right. Well, we're actually not going to do the PowerPoint. I'm going to jump to Airbnb and show you guys what not to do. What can save you?
Oh, that's good.
A little live action here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is fun because I usually like to do this with a live audience, but we're just going to play around like we're a live audience.
Well, we got a live audience.
Yeah.
They're live.
That's
well, and we're a live
audience. Are you guys living in there?
Hopefully you guys are having fun.
We are.
Okay,
We've got a chat.
Let's say we're going to go out to Destin for the weekend. And we'll just say we're going 4 adults here.
Okay.
So here's some things that are critical. Oh, good. I pulled this property up earlier, but it's still on here. So I pulled it up just in case. So when it comes to your listing, guys, I'll tell you this. This is going to make or break your listing is your quality of your photos. Let's see if I can pull all of these up here. Okay. Check this out. So we've got 76 photos up here. Already right off the bat, as you're looking at this, what can you see about this image? Do you guys see how dark it is inside of here?
Yep. Lighting's not very good. Looks a little bit dingy. Yep.
Yeah, the lighting's horrible in here. And this was probably designed by a guy because they didn't even take the time to straighten the pillow before they took the picture.
Yeah, it is a telltale sign.
I mean, look at the angle of this cord hider. At least they hid the cord, but that's just a weird angle that they've got on there.
Right.
Yeah, it is.
So,
well, and Dave, too, it's been my experience that individuals who do Verbo, they rent short-term rentals and so forth, whether it's through Airbnb or whatever it is, they get acquainted with the fact that if the photos look good and then they get to the property and the property looks terrible, then that means the next time they take a look for a property, they want to make sure the photos look fantastic. Because they know that they're going to show better than the actual property.
Yeah, that is so true. And the number one person that's booking the property, even if it's for somebody going on business, is usually a female. She could be the secretary booking it for her boss or the spouse of the person that's going on travel. So if you can please the woman's eye, it's going to help your listing a lot. So look at this one. Windows are closed here. It makes me wonder what they're hiding behind those curtains.
Yeah,
and it's very, very dark. And I realize
it's a masculine layout. I've noticed, like now that you say, appeal to the female eye, that seems like a pretty masculine layout.
And so far, the only thing they have on the wall is a TV and a mirror. They don't have any other decor on their walls. So those previous photos were probably taken at night because now all the blinds are open. But here's the thing is when you're taking this from a phone camera, even in the middle of the day like this, it's going to completely wash out the whole inside of your place. And because they're lighting up here, you notice, if you guys can see my arrow, the lighting on the top where that light is does not match the light that's coming in from the outside. So if you can get some good quality photos, and then this is fun, they start repeating. There's 76 of these photos.
Oh no.
They just go on and on and on, all the same photos. It took me a while before I even found a bedroom.
Wow. That is terrible.
We're on 32. We finally made it to the kitchen. So again, since it was taken from a camera phone, these walls back here, they all look yellow, and this is just washed out white. You can't really see much detail in here. And if you're coming here, do you even know what they have in their kitchen besides a microwave and an oven? There's nothing telling you. Oh, I guess there is a Keurig machine there. We just had to go to a different photo. There's really nothing telling you anything. I mean, they've got 20 pictures of their kitchen that tell me very, very little.
Right. I know for my short-term rentals, I mean, I actually open up the cabinets and give them a picture of all of the appliances, all the dishes, all the cups and glasses and whatever else, so they can see how well stocked it is. And that's another huge selling feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. And you want to think about it like, sorry, let me go back here, pause real quick. But you want to think about it. Most of the audience tuning in probably doesn't remember what the yellow pages were. But before Google, they had this magical book that listed all of the local businesses. So imagine you were a plumbing company and you put an ad in the yellow pages, or today it would be Google, but you put this ad on the yellow pages and you just list your business name and your phone number. And then the guy right below you has this nice half-page photo there saying, hey, we're open 24/7. Well, if your plumbing goes out in the middle of the night, which listing are you going to call?
The first 24/7 one.
Yeah, It's going to be the 24/7 one. Here's the funny thing. They're both most likely open 24/7. But the first guy didn't say he was open 24/7. So you want to think about that in relation to your customer that you're serving. You want to answer those questions that they're not even thinking of yet, right in your picture. Just like Bob was saying, you want to open up those cupboards and show them what they're going to need. Otherwise, you're going to get a message saying, hey, do you have this in your kitchen? Or do you stock this or this or this or this? I get very few of those inquiries because I've already answered the question for them. They can just read through my photo and be like, oh yeah, I can see they have a microwave. They've got all the dishes for my family, so I'm good. I don't have to bring anything extra.
Excellent. Right on. Hey,
Okay,
and Dave,
sorry.
I just want to, make sure that if there are any questions from any of the viewers out there, drop them into the comments section here, and Matt's going to be taking a look at that because we'd be happy to ask those questions to Dave as we go through the information here.
Yeah, especially, if you have any questions, for sure, let me know. So that last picture that I showed was of the bedroom, and I'll go back to it in just a second. But you saw those two beds, they had the red comforter on top of them.
Right.
I learned this from the classes, but it got reiterated to me by a cleaner that we have working for us. She's worked for us for 5 years now, but she used to be a full-time cleaner for the hotels in Salt Lake City. And she told my wife, as my wife was interviewing her, she said, when I was cleaning hotels, very rarely would the cleaning maids clean the comforter on top of the bed. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if they very rarely clean the comforter, how often do they clean what's under the comforter where you're actually sleeping?
Right.
Hopefully, it's more often than very rarely.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. And then I saw a reel of this a couple years ago of Entertainment Tonight of all places. They were booking someone on Airbnb. They booked it for one night, and then they made a separate reservation for the next night. And all they did, they went into the bedroom, they pulled the sheets back, and they stamped an infrared stamp that said Entertainment Tonight all over the pillows, all over the sheets, and then left it all unkept. They leave, and they come back the next day, and they take a black light to it, and what do you think they found on the sheets?
Oh my goodness, no kidding.
Yeah.
Entertainment Tonight all over.
Yep.
So
that's what you call a bad move. That's going to get you a really bad reputation on Airbnb.
Yeah.
Yeah. It absolutely will. But as we're going back to these photos, I mean, look at this. To me, they've got dark gray sheets and this ugly red comforter here. To me, that just screams not clean. And they've got 70 plus photos in here. They're all duplicate photos. How often do most people stop before they're on to the next listing? Because if it doesn't catch your eye, they're just swiping. They're not even going to make the beds. That bed picture was on like 40 pictures. They have to get through 20 images just to get to the kitchen. So yeah, I can't stress the value of photos enough. The photographer I use, he's expensive, but he's well worth the money. I mean, just the last one he did for me, it was just like a 700 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment. I paid him almost $600 for that one unit. But that one unit has paid us very well over the last couple of years. And I pulled this stat off of Airbnb dealing with photos. They said that high quality photos on average give you 40% more bookings than poor quality photos do.
Wow. Right.
And not just high quality photos, but it's the photos in the correct format. So on Airbnb, they want everything in a horizontal versus a vertical landscape.
Yeah.
So if you can please the platform that you're listing on, it's going to drive up your rankings on them. The only reason we found that guy in Destin, Florida is because he's a brand new listing. So they're still giving him the new listing status. He's only been on there for 2 months. But after a while, his rating is going to go way down because it takes 40 pictures just to see where I'm going to be sleeping. And my wife would be on to the next one so fast.
Right.
And then I read this study from, this was done by Carnegie Mellon University. So they said the yearly revenue of a booking with high quality photos increases your potential revenue by $2,455 per listing. So I look at it, say, man, is the $600 well worth that money if it can make me an extra $2,400? The answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah, it's absolute return on investment over and over and over again. So, don't be shy about putting a few bucks up front so that you can get a higher rate of return for the long haul.
Yeah, it's so worth it. I cannot stress that enough. I've seen so many listings over 6 years, and they just make me laugh. I mean, it's almost comical. Like, does that guy not realize he duplicated his photos like 3 times? It makes you laugh, but then you almost feel bad for him because they weren't educated. They just thought, man, I can just list this and start making money.
Yeah.
But on Airbnb, I mean, there was a time when you could just have a listing up there back in 2022, 2023 and make money. Now you have to really know what you're doing to really rank up and get paid what you want to get paid.
Yeah. And Dave, speak to that. How important are those rankings?
Oh, I mean, they're huge because if people don't see you, it's like doing a Google search. If you're on page 5 of Google, no one's going to find you because they're looking at page 1. How often do you ever go to page 2 on a Google search?
Right.
Almost never. So if you can do what you can to please and get to the top of the rankings, and not just with photos, but I was also looking at Airbnb statistics with amenities because so many people, even if they have amenities in their kitchen, if they have a fully stocked kitchen, but they don't disclose what's in there, because now on Airbnb, you can go like almost by line item and just check the box. If there's boxes that you're not checking that you have, that can also affect your rating on Airbnb just because people don't know that you have it.
Right on. Well, man, I know we've got a few more questions here. We want to get those out before we
do
draw to a close.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, we've got a handful of questions here. So where did you find the checklists?
Which checklist?
I don't know.
Jasper,
on Airbnb.
It might be the one he was referring to. On Airbnb, when you're listing your amenities as you're building out your listing, it'll ask you like, what do you have in your kitchen? What do you have in your bathroom? And you just check those boxes.
Gotcha.
I think that's what he was asking.
Okay. Aubrey asks, she actually has 2 questions. Have you ever had a failed short-term rental? If so, what did you learn from it? And do you have to have credit checks when applying to lease a short-term rental? So first, if you had one that failed, and what did you learn if you did?
Yeah, Aubrey, that is a really good question. And I want to define failure because I don't think that you really ever fail in life. I believe in failing forward. So I've had listings that weren't the best that I learned a lot from and had to move on. So, in fact, I did one with my brother. He wanted to get into it and do it, and we really only broke even every month. I mean, most we made was like $300. So we only kept that one for a year, and then he's like, "Okay, I don't want to do this one anymore." And the only reason I did it with him is because he went and found the property, and all I had to do was manage it for him.
So
So
your failure was breaking even?
yeah, failure was breaking even. I just had one recently that it was almost like the nightmare story where I have I learned a lot on this one. This was back in December where so the apartment company that I worked with there, they already cater to people that have Airbnb listings. So I already worked with the management. I got approved through them. We were good. And because they catered to Airbnb, I thought I was good. It was in their contract and all of that seemed to be okay. But then I had a last minute booking of this kid, just this young kid, that he didn't do anything to my property, but he got in trouble with the law. And the cops showed up Monday morning to the leasing office and they wanted to go walk my property because he was keeping merchandise in my unit, supposedly. And as soon as the cops left, I got a 3-day notice to vacate
Oh no.
on my. So that one was a good learning lesson. I thought I was good, and I even worked with them on it, and they're like, "Hey, sorry. Apparently, if the cops walk your property, that's a violation of your lease agreement." So now I know going forward what to look for and clearly list it out. Okay, if something does happen, now how can I structure it where they're giving me more than just a 3-day notice to vacate? So I don't really think there's a failed listing. You just learn and you move forward.
Do you have to have credit checks when applying to lease a short-term rental?
Yeah, really good question. To start, you do and you don't. I mean, if you're starting at an apartment complex, most apartment complexes require a credit check, but go find one that doesn't. Or just go to a mom and pop landlord that's struggling finding a long-term renter in there and negotiate with them on why they should do a short-term rental and why they should rent to you.
Mm.
And then if you can create that relationship, you can go right around the credit check.
How many days per month do you need them rented to make a profit above your lease?
Yeah, I look on average, I need about 20 nights booked a night to break even.
Okay.
So if I can get 20 nights and more, then I'm just making money.
Cool. Excellent.
Now,
What are the questions we got
month,
Does your photographer make suggestions on how to arrange things, and or do you have an interior designer set up your short-term rental?
No, in fact, my photographer does what I tell him to do. And really, it's what my wife tells him to do because they've done 17 shoots together. So he does what she tells him to, but she learned the questions to ask the photographer through the education. And I literally found him online and I just called him and I was like, this is going to sound really funny, but I was told I had to ask you these questions, like what aperture you're using, how your camera works, what tripod you use. And he's just like laughing under his breath, but he's like, yep, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. No problem. And I was like, well, that's all the questions I was told to ask. So when can you come over? And he's been awesome.
Right on, man. That's perfect. Okay. Any other questions you've got there, man?
Yeah. So Jasper said, I meant checklist to furnish when he was asking about checklists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it I got in the classes, and then now I've kind of built my own. Most of the stuff I get is on Amazon. So we'll just have an Amazon order checklist with kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, and then we'll just go put all that stuff into an Amazon cart and ship it to us. So and if you want it...
Yeah, and once you get the first unit done, Dave, don't you find that it's generally just kind of rinse and repeat for all of the rest of them?
Yeah, it is. Like now all it's doing is choosing a different color scheme that we want our photos to look like, but everything else is the exact same.
Right.
So other than having nice photos and a good description, what are other ways to improve your ratings on Airbnb?
Ooh, really good question. Utilize AI tools. So I use chat. If I have a listing that's not performing as well as it used to, I'll throw my avatar into chat. I'll throw my listing into there, whether it's an Airbnb listing or a Vrbo listing, and I'll say, hey, chat, here's my avatar. This listing's not pulling like I want it to. Create a new listing for me. And it'll do it in minutes. And then I'll try that one for a week.
Right on, Dave. Right on. Man, I'm telling you, you know what? I can't believe how quickly our time has gone because we're winding down. We're almost to the top of the hour. I just really want to thank you for coming out there and being willing to share some of your wisdoms and experience, because you've gained so much knowledge. At first it's classroom knowledge, then it becomes institutional knowledge, and now you're willing to share it with others. And that's what InvestEdge is all about. It's just, getting out here and kind of helping each other cut that learning curve. That's another thing, though, is we find on a regular basis is that the learning curve. And that is, if you like what you see here and you need a little bit of help and assistance, hey, man, just let us know. All you've got to do, if you want to talk to one of our investor professionals, for a quick consultation to see whether or not we're a good fit for you and we can be helpful to you, is just go to renatus.me/invest. Now, how do you spell Renatus? RENATUS. So renatus.me/invest. And if you do that, we'd be happy to give you a 15-minute free consult just to see whether or not, we can be of assistance to you in your investing career. There's so many other things. If you like InvestEdge, hey, let everybody know. I mean, just hit the subscribe button so that you get notifications when we've got the next one coming up. Like us, love us, tell other folks about us, because we want to get the word out. I am a big believer in real estate investing, as I know that you are, because you otherwise wouldn't be here. I believe that it gives you the best pound for pound, dollar for dollar return on investment in a more controlled environment where it's much more predictable, it's insurable, to hedge against inflation. And real estate provides one of the three basic necessities of life, which is shelter, right? You got food, water, shelter. Now think about that. How long has that been going on? There's a pretty good bet that it's going to continue.
Probably.
It really will. So, Dave, thank you for being our guest the day, and we're thrilled that we were able to spend some quality time with each and every one of you. Join us next week, because we've got another fantastic InvestEdge with another great topic and another one of our students out here that's just crushing it in the real estate world. So until then, we'll see you. We hope you have a fantastic week. Good day, and God bless.
Thanks, Bob.
See you guys.
It's just not working. Look to those who know the path we're taking.